Welcome to The Crunch with Crib. I'm Jess, and each episode I'll be talking with some of WA's best real estate agents and business people to find out what makes them tick and what lessons they've learned on their journey to success. Did you know that Simon McGrath got his start in real estate after a failed career marketing Kieran Perkins branded fruit? Neither did we. But after 20 years of selling in some of Perth's most prestigious suburbs, Simon has well and truly proved himself in real estate. It was a pleasure to chat to Simon for this episode of The Crunch, and as well as sharing his story with us, Simon also outlined why it's so important to provide value in today's market and what he looks for in an up-and-coming agent. Simon?
Yeah.
Welcome to The Crunch.
Let's do it.
Thank you for coming along. I feel like we've just missed a lot of the best conversation because I haven't been recording. And
the best is yet to come.
The best is yet to come. So thank you so much for your time.
Pleasure.
And as I always do, I would like to kick off today's little interview by hearing a little bit about how you got started in real estate, which I know was, 20 or so years ago?
Yeah, in August this year it will be 21 years.
Wow, okay.
And I got into real estate because I'd lost all my money. I went to work for Kieran Perkins and his father.
The swimmer?
Yeah.
Oh,
the Olympic swimmer,
okay.
running a wholesale marketing company that basically sold fruit and vegetables into the east coast of Australia. Anyway, we launched it on his brand with his image, and we had TV commercials all down the east coast.
So that would have been prime Kieran Perkins.
Oh yeah, he was the
cereal
hottest
box
property in the world.
Yeah.
Okay, so we had hundreds of thousands of dollars of sales in the bag, and the first product we launched under his brand was a rockmelon. Anyway, it corresponded with 2 years of flooding in Chinchilla and St. George, where all the rockmelons are grown. Anyway, it all went bankrupt, and at that stage I'd met my wife at a party in Fremantle, and she put a spell on me, and so I was flying back from Brisbane from Perth to Brisbane all the time to see her. And I was just driving past the old Matilda Bay Brewery, and I looked out at the ocean. I go, I'm just not going back. Anyway, I did go back, and I handed in my resignation and came back to live in Perth and had to do something.
Yeah.
And as a kid, my parents had friends who were real estate agents, and they always drove really nice cars.
Yeah.
And I thought, geez, I could do that. And I met a guy who was in real estate. I was working in a plumbing warehouse as a storeman, and just as an interim. Actually, the happiest days of my life, I'd ride my bike to work, and my wife and I lived she wasn't my wife then. We lived in a little 2-bedroom Brian Clopper apartment in Fremantle called Fabric.
Yep.
And they were very happy days, extremely simple. This house had a front door and a toilet door. That's all it had. And
I'd do some hard labour.
That's it. Yeah. Ride my bike to work, ride my bike home. It was pretty good. So I went and did a 10-day meditation in silence, a Vipassana at the Buddhist Meditation Centre, and came out of that and went straight into real estate. And I've never stopped talking since.
Wow. I can't imagine you learned to talk with real estate. I imagine it was before that. I have a question on the rockmelon.
Yeah.
Being someone that works in marketing, how do you brand a rockmelon, Kieran Perkins?
Okay, so Kieran Perkins literally was the hottest property at that time. Just post-Olympics, world record holder.
I'm sure I did 3 different school projects on him.
You must have. We launched these TV commercials under the brand of his father, myself, and 2 other guys owned a brand called Peak.
Okay.
And we would take a product, and the first one was the rockmelon, and then advertise it into through television, media, etc., into the major supermarkets. And we had orders with Coles, Franklin's, Woolworths for hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars.
So rockmelon wasn't a known fruit?
No, it was a known fruit, but it was branded. So you buy a Peak rockmelon. Now in Japan,
like a Fuji apple.
Yeah, kind of like that. Okay, but branding is really super important, and it has a relationship to real estate, of course, and we'll get to that. But the Peak rockmelon was the one that was endorsed by Kieran Perkins.
Right.
And we did an ad where he was in front of all these kids at school, and he had half a rockmelon and he was eating it while he was talking to the kids. And the kids say, what's your record, Mr. Perkins? And he said, I think it's 8.5. And they went, 8.5 rockmelons, So and it was kind of cute.
Right.
But it worked. We got massive orders, but no supply.
Okay. Thank you for clearing that up.
Pleasure.
So back to real estate. You started off, correct me if I'm wrong, in an office in Freo Prison, or is that this is the start of Abel McGrath?
That's the start of Abel McGrath.
Right. So tell me how you went from your first days of real estate into Abel McGrath.
Sure. I had a friend who owns Perth's largest business broking firm, GMO, and he introduced me to a couple of real estate agents who had agencies in the western suburbs. At that time, I was dating a girl in the western suburbs, and it seemed like the thing to do. That was my entire introduction. So I got a job working for a guy who I ended up leaving because he didn't look after his staff very well. And so I sort of worked my way through the ranks. I was the number one salesperson there. And then along this journey, I just realized this was the wrong environment for me to be in. It wasn't completely respectful or wholesome, or you didn't feel appreciated by the principal of the business. And so, I made a decision to leave. And then I'd met a guy who I'd sold a house for, and he had just come out of he'd just come through bankruptcy, and he needed to do something. And so I've jumped a couple of years, but at that stage, my second child was about to be born, and I realised that real estate was too tough to do. You needed to have some leverage and some assistance in the background to give a level of service that I could allow me to sleep at night, and also cover enough ground, because it really is a manic industry. So I'd sold his house for him, and we had a chat, and we eventually got together and we started Abel McGrath Property Group. And to do that, I lived in Fremantle at that stage, and we rented a prison cell, and it was $18 a week. That was our entire overhead. And we went to Officeworks and bought a photocopy machine and fax machine, and we were in business. And it worked really well. We operated under somebody else's license. You can do that, as long as the addresses are the same and you pay some sort of licensing fee and the insurances are covered as a fiscal relationship. So we did that for a while, and then we managed to get a premise in Claremont, and all the time building up our trade and taking on more staff, and eventually got to the stage where currently I've got about, I think it's 45 staff, and we manage a huge amount of properties under property management, and we last year came fifth in the state for the amount of real estate we sold, and that's pretty good when there's 1,000+ agencies and 10,000 reps. Yeah. So absolutely. Anyway, it's been a fabulous journey.
What do you think are some of the biggest lessons that you learned in those early years?
Not to take it personally, or I have to qualify that, because there's you need to take every interaction with your client personally, because it's too important for them and for you not to. But when things don't go your way, there can be many elements that have brought about that outcome. Yeah, it might not be you. And so, when you don't get that piece of business, or something doesn't go the way you wanted it to, just don't take it personally. And, it is a conveyor belt. There'll be another opportunity along any second. And one has to maintain, be the best person you can be, and then you're available for that opportunity. If you're still licking your wounds about the last one you didn't get, you're not very good to get the next one. Yeah. So that's probably my point is, let things go. Just let it go and move on, because there's, it's an abundant world, and there's always another opportunity. And maybe if it's not working for you, it's time. It's a message. Yeah. Maybe get out. Yeah.
Have you ever felt like, it's been 20 years. Do you still love it every day?
Look, there's days where I don't. Yeah. I've just got to be honest with you. There's days where I could, you'll find me in the fetal position underneath the desk sobbing. No, not really. I stand up and sob.
Like a man.
Yeah, like a man. Sob like a man. The answer to that question is, yeah, I do. I dig it. I dig people. I have a huge amount of fun with all my clients. And they end up being relationships. Yeah. They start off as purely business relationships, and they end up being some very long-term friendships and special relationships with some beautiful people that I've nurtured over this transition from one home to another. And that feels great.
Yeah.
Really good.
Yeah.
In fact, I'll tell you a secret on radio. Okay.
The scoop.
The first person I ever sold a house to were South African immigrants, and they are godparents to my children.
Oh, wow, there you go.
Here we are 21 years later, we still socialise.
Yeah.
I had dinner with them only recently.
Yeah, there you go. The
Yeah,
relationships
they're
you
mates.
build. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell me, you said when you you started Abel McGrath, or you went out on your own, it was because you needed the assistance or needed the
leverage.
support, the leverage. But I assume that, at the moment, since you started Abel McGrath, you've got the role of real estate agent, which is tough enough.
Yeah.
And then you're the principal of a business as well.
Yeah,
so
true.
how do you kind of balance those two?
Look, not only do I have the uncanny knack to surround myself with beautiful women, I also surround myself with incredibly competent women. And I find I like working with women because they care. And there's a level of honesty. The egos are dropped, which is probably what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
So I really enjoy that. Now, I think there's only 4 blokes in my company. And the point I'm making here is that I have had the ability to see qualities in people that are synergetic with myself.
Yeah.
So like my current PA, this is Shannon, who's just totally fabulous.
She is.
Totally fabulous. Now,
Yeah.
all those other real estate agents, stop calling her. She's staying, all right? And
They're a hot commodity, good PAs.
and it allows me to be me.
Yeah.
It allows me to bring my gift to the table when the other things are taken care of.
Yeah.
So, Shannon makes my appointments for me. When email inquiries come in, Shannon sets up the meetings for me. Those types of things. It allows me to have my head free to be the creative individual that I am, or recalcitrant 8-year-old. So, you've got to do what you're good at.
Yeah.
And booking termite reports just is not my bag.
Yeah.
But like goofing around with a buyer and getting them in a state where they're totally comfortable that I can ask them really tough questions, closing questions about are you going to make an offer on this today?
Yeah.
Can you see yourself living here?
Yeah.
What are the things about this that you like the most? Little closing questions leading to a big closing question. I disarm the people, my people I deal with, but do it in an honest sense. It's not trickery or conning. I want the best for them.
Yeah.
That's where I come from. That's my position. So where I'm going with this is if you come from a good place, you don't need to fake it.
Yeah.
You can goof around with people.
Yeah.
You can push into their space because it's wholesome for you to push into their space. I'm literally helping them make up their minds. And sometimes we all need a little push.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
But behind that is a foundation of, I just wouldn't do anything bad to anybody. It's not in me.
Yeah.
I don't want to.
Is that as an agent, how has that always been the way you've dealt with people and the way you've done business, or is it something you've developed over time?
No, it's innate. It's who I am, and it means you don't win every race, but you win enough.
Yeah,
and it's the enough that you count at the end of the day. So I've got this sort of theory. Our business has 2 poles, and you've got the doormat, and that's the rep that is just plain too nice. They want to be your best friend. They can't get out of their own way.
Yeah.
And they don't ask the tough questions that you've got to ask of a seller and a buyer. With sellers, generally the big one is around the price and expectations. Now, we're in a tough market right now, and I've had to read the right act lovingly to many clients recently to get the property sold when they have been presented with a realistic and commercially viable offer. Okay. And they don't want, it's like administering the drug. Somebody has to do it.
Yeah.
And in a professional person, in real estate, it's the agent. So it's not pleasant, but it's tough love.
Yeah.
It is tough love, and you've got to give it. So having the ability to do that means you can't be a doormat. You just can't. Otherwise, no one respects you. You get sucked into all sorts of scenarios that don't pay off for anybody, and it's just a nightmare. And the other end of the scale, you've got the arsehole. Seriously.
Yeah.
And they're out there.
Yeah.
There are people who will give away the seller's lowest price, who will do anything just to get it sold, not disclose information, all sorts of, our business has had a poor reputation, but I believe it's getting far better, particularly as younger people enter the industry and there's more transparency around sales. It's just cleaning up the business a lot. But there's a nice fresh troop coming through the industry. But if you're a bad person, you can create a lot of damage in this business.
Yeah. I want to touch on, I guess, social media on that point because it's becoming such a big part of every agent's arsenal. And how do you go about letting your personality shine through? Because that's obviously the reason why someone would sell with you is because you are honest and, all of those things. How do you look at social media and making sure that what you put on there is a true reflection of who you are as an agent?
Well, I think most agents now run 2 Facebook pages.
Yeah.
I run 2 Facebook pages.
Yeah.
One of them's really good fun.
Yeah.
And the other one's pretty good fun.
Yeah.
And they have a overlapping of some of the material. But on my more personal one, there's a bunch of family stuff and I'm a bit of a social justice warrior and fighting Cardinal Pell and all of that, But that's in me. I'm a advocate for natural justice.
Yeah.
And I just hate injustice in any sense. Now, some of that stuff filters across to my sort of professional page.
Yeah.
On the professional page, I wear a tie. That's the big difference.
Yeah, yeah.
But Shannon, the Wonder Girl, she helps me with my business one and then picks things out of my personal one to drag across. So there's always this flavour of who I am. And but I'm also an advocate for authenticity. And what I'm seeing at the moment is a lot of sort of irksome shininess.
Yes.
And it's almost vomit-worthy for me. And it's just not authentic.
Yeah.
And I go, okay, you can pull off authentic for a while, but after a while people go, yeah, I smell a rat here somewhere. So that's the trick. The trick is to provide content which is not totally business-focused, but is really authentic to who you are as a person.
Yeah.
And that might be liked or it might not be liked. You've just got to be brave enough to find out.
Well, it's the same in real life.
It is the same in real life.
You might be liked or you might not be liked.
That's right. Unbelievably, not everybody loves me.
Me either. It's shocking.
Why do you sit with that, How can there's so many idiots?
So tell me about then how has business changed for you? Obviously digital is a big thing now, but also managing your sellers, is different now. It's a tough market.
Okay, so it's changed, but it hasn't changed. Okay, the number one thing is, and I can remember a conversation I had with one of the salespeople that worked with me, and they wanted to buy these voucher books to give away and create business through offering holidays. And this person was talking to me and I just said, stop. And he said, well, what is it? I said, no, there's only the phone.
Yeah.
Just phone. There's only the phone. That's it. There's no other magic bullet. Just pick up the phone and hear someone's voice and give them yours. And that's it. And so I suppose telephones are digital, but my point here is it's a function of how many people you reach out to in an authentic sense. And the best way to do that is through telephone. In the background, you're building a brand, which is probably the digital sense. But if you don't want to phone people, don't be in the business.
Yeah.
We keep tallies on our telephone call out, how many calls we make out.
Yeah.
It is the lifeblood of this business. And the fear is that you're phoning somebody that don't want to hear from you. But I got to tell you, 9 out of 10 times people say, hey, thanks for the call.
Have you noticed it? You sell in an affluent area, and I'm assuming a lot of your sellers and your buyers are in the older demographic.
Not all, but some. You'd be fair to say.
But in terms of picking up the phone, there seems to be a real aversion, I guess, for some people to act when they get a phone call. You know, it's kind of like, why? Who's calling me? God, why can't I send a text? Have you noticed a change in that regard?
No, I haven't.
Yeah.
The response from a telephone call is overwhelmingly positive. Much more so. I do this thing when I do my callbacks. I have a pre-programmed text. I send the text and then I call like 30 seconds after.
Yeah.
So because
to give people a heads up.
Yeah, not quite right. What it does, it guarantees that I've got my message across.
Okay.
So the telephone call after that point can go wherever, the telephone call is more fluid, yet the message is succinct.
Yeah.
So they get it.
Yeah.
And I know they've got it, which then gives me the freedom to goof around on
have
the phone.
A chat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So tell me, is your process in terms of your calls and all of those things that you do, again, developed over time? Do you have a coach?
Well, I've had lots of coaches over the years. The best coach is failure and the regret of failure.
Yeah.
But I've done Tom Panis. I'm trying to think who all these guys are now, but there's an endless parade of people wanting to take my money.
Yeah.
And they each offer something.
Yeah.
But what I generally find out is that they deliver their magic bullet in the first part of the relationship, and the second part of the relationship is justifying why they should still be there.
Yeah. Well, then it's up to you to really implement what they're telling you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You won't implement everything. You've just got to implement something.
Yeah.
And that's generally how it works out for me.
Yeah.
The diligence around doing the telephone calls is the big one. It's the most dollar productive activity that one can do in real estate. Everything else is kind of like window dressing.
Yeah.
Telephone calls is where it's at.
Yeah. Do you mentor anyone?
Look, I have.
Yeah.
Lots of people. And I'm very proud to tell you that one of my salesmen got number 1 this month in the state.
Oh, wow.
And that feels very good.
Congratulations to them.
I've been there. I've been number 1 in the state. I know the feeling.
Yeah.
It is a fabulous feeling. Anyway, very proud of him. And he is the guy who does the most telephone work in our business.
Yeah.
He's just a maniac on the telephone and much more diligent and organised around it than myself. He logs his calls, keeps charts on how many he makes, that sort of thing. I just basically put aside time and go hard as I can go for that period. Yeah. And I don't log them, I don't count them, but I just know I get to the end of that time period and I either smashed it or I didn't. And can't answer to anybody else but me.
If you've put aside that time period and you don't feel good that day, do you do it anyway?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
You'll never get back the time.
Yeah.
Once the time's gone, money comes and goes, time just goes. And you have to, because the longer it is between when you needed to call that person that you're in a relationship with, seller or buyer, particularly sellers, and they're hungry for your information.
Yes.
They're like fretting.
Yeah.
And the longer you get, the more irksome it gets inside you, the more sick you feel in the tummy about that call.
Yeah.
So I do this weird trick, okay? I dial the number as if it's not me. So, dial the number. And then I look away and I press send. And then I go, oh, shit, now I've got to talk to them because somehow the number got dialed. I know it's my own little insanity, but it works, particularly with uncomfortable calls.
Yeah. It's a mind trick.
It is a mind trick.
I feel like I probably do that myself sometimes.
You just got
to press dial.
And it's never as bad as I thought it might have been.
No.
Never is.
No.
And some of those are the most golden telephone calls.
Yeah. I think the feeling of having to make the call is worse than the actual call.
Far worse.
Yeah, yeah. Tell me about your competitors in your market. You work in a very tough patch.
We do. It's the most competitive patch of real estate in Australia.
Yeah.
More real estate agents per square metre than anywhere else in Australia.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
In more than Double Bay.
Okay. Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's a tough patch.
So what do you do to stand out and keep your market share and,
Oh, look, my comic genius. In the early days, we had these really interesting little vans which got us noticed. They looked like snails. They're called escargots. And that got us noticed. And then from that point forward, it's up to me. What do I do? I see huge value in the home open space. So when I'm at home open, I'm switched on.
Yeah.
And I'm engaged with people. I'm incredibly funny. Just ask me. I'm interested in them.
Yeah.
And that's where, can I get all the real estate agents of Perth to turn off their radios now?
Stop listening.
Stop listening, okay. That's where I get the bulk of my business from,
Yeah.
is the one-on-one interaction I have with people standing in home opens. And then the follow-up from that relationship, and then you build on that, and the next thing you know, when they're ready to sell, at least you get called in. Now, and I've been to other reps' home opens, and it's kind of like you walk through the house and you go, is there anybody here? Is there an agent here somewhere?
Yeah.
It's like, or they're just entirely not interested in you.
I went to a home open the other day, and the treatment that I received from the agent was diabolical.
What a shame for
and I
him
would never,
and the seller.
Ever, yeah, that's right. I felt like I wish I had the seller's number so I could call them and say, change your rep.
God.
You know, it was so terrible, and it makes such a big, big difference.
I'll leave you with some cards.
Yeah.
That is showtime.
Yeah.
Not just for the house, but for you. And it's precious time. So, look, by the time they say it takes at least 3 interactions to build relationship. So, and there's another saying too, which I adhere to, is that frequency of interaction leads to trust. It's absolutely a fact. So if they've seen you at a home open and then you call them, and then you maybe drop off for some piece of printed material, whether it be sales evidence for their street or the house they're interested in or whatever, and then you follow up with another telephone call, and they might see you next weekend at another house. All of a sudden, you're not this alien anymore. You're kind of quite familiar. And frequency of interaction leads to trust. It's a truism.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of one of my formulas, is to, and I find it easy because I like people.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
well, it's surely easier to interact with someone in a positive way that's come to you. You know, that
for sure.
It's such an easy, warm introduction.
No, it definitely is.
Yeah.
It's a little tough when you've got, a house full of people
I was gonna say,
and you're there for 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Best I can do then is to grab telephone and
numbers.
email addresses.
Yeah.
And then do the callbacks in the evening or the afternoon, which is tough because that's your family time and you've got other demands, but it's just got to be done.
Yeah. How have you found the market? Because obviously when I come out to your office and I chat to your reps, they seem pretty positive and they're getting for the most part, getting lots of people through their home opens.
We are.
Where the rest of them,
Okay, so I'll answer that question. It is tough.
Yeah.
I mean, the deals are much harder to set.
Yeah.
Everyone's worried about the finance at the moment.
Yeah.
It's just harder to get finance across the line. I'm seeing more mortgage defaultees, and I haven't seen any for years.
Yeah.
None. And I've got 2 on the go at the moment.
Yeah, right.
Which really, really interests me. And I know of probably 2 or 3 others. So I reckon we're going to see quite a bit of pain come through the market. What it means is that, let's say if the house next door to you sells for less, well, now yours is worth less.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is.
It is the way it is.
So there's a fair bit of angst out there. There's never been a more important time to hustle. And what I mean is hustle to get stock.
Yeah.
And hustle to sell that stock and be the shiniest, brightest version of yourself you can possibly be. So there's no, the agent that says, "G'day, have a look round,"
doesn't say anything.
He's dead.
Yeah.
He's not going to get listings. He's going to rely on things like digital media or letterbox drops or whatever to get his invitation to get inside people's houses. And when he does, he's a stranger when he goes in.
Yeah.
So it's, you're not doing yourself any favours unless you work your home opens really well.
Yeah. Have you seen a change in buyer and seller expectations?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay. So the big thing I'm hearing at the moment is there's a point in the sales relationship where it's a pivot point. So they go from, I'm interested, yes, I'm interested, yes, I'm interested, I think I like this.
Yeah.
So it's like a dance, like the tango, I guess.
Yeah.
But, there's a dance and then it gets serious. At the moment, it's harder. It's plenty of people doing the dance, plenty of people getting information and looking around, but it's a little tougher to get them to the commitment point. And the big thing is that, I've had people say to me, "Look, I'll just keep on looking."
Yeah.
And I'm going, "Well, you like this?" And he says, "Yeah, but I don't like it enough at the price." I'm going, "Well, let me talk about price to you. Is that okay?"
Yeah.
So, you put that in its context and you get an approval for them to talk about, now we're talking about price because we've already agreed you like it.
Yeah.
And then you have a conversation around price. Now, you might not like the price they're going to give you, but I will always take it to my seller because good offers don't always start off as good offers.
Yeah.
Bad ones turn into good ones eventually.
Yeah.
And there's a massive difference between the time where somebody's casually interested in something to putting pen to paper. Once they put pen to paper, they've thrown their heart over the fence. There's a world of difference.
Yeah.
And they will tell their mum, they'll tell the kids, they'll tell their mates at work they're buying that place.
Yeah, they're skin in
and
the game then.
Now they're really, there's an emotional commitment that didn't exist previously.
Yeah.
And that's probably what I'm trying to say. It's getting to people to the point of emotional commitment.
And what about from your sellers in terms of their expectations of you as an agent?
Look, I constantly beat myself up for not being communicative enough, but obviously I am.
Yeah.
I'm successful. But whenever I make that telephone call, I try to make it high value. So I'll possibly, this is a human weakness, I'll possibly postpone making a call because I'm trying to gain data. I'm trying to talk to some other agent and get this organised and see if that seller the buyer is really going to come to the table.
Yeah.
And that person I was talking to about their finance, if they're back in the game, and then I go to them rather than a telephone call that says, "Hi, it's Simon." It's one of where I've got lots of data and I've got lots of value to add in that conversation.
Yeah, yeah, okay. Do you prefer to sell or do you prefer to list or do you prefer to sell?
I dig them both.
Yeah?
I did a listing presentation yesterday. I don't know if I've got the business yet. I certainly asked for the business three times before leaving the table, and I sort of segmented the approval process. And I said, look, other than fees, are you okay to work with me?
Yeah.
And they said, absolutely. This has been great.
Yeah.
And I really value the exchange we've had. However, I'm struggling with fees. And I said, well, I obviously haven't proved to you my value yet. What about the fees isn't it that's going to work for you? Anyway, we had a deep discussion around that. I literally turned them around and I shall find out today whether I've got that piece of business or not. But I walked out anyway. My point in this story is I walked out of there. It actually doesn't matter whether I get the listing or not. It's nice to get it.
Yeah.
But I was a great agent for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
I was an awesome agent. And I opened their eyes because they wanted to transact on a fixed fee like Purple Bricks do.
Yeah.
And I'm going, whoa, this is really bad for you and you don't understand why. And they said, how could it be bad? And I explained all the pitfalls of working for a fixed fee and how the agent's got no skin in the game. He just wants you off his books as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
And by the way, if it's a low fixed fee, you'll get the worst spot in the day because he wants to sell his full price properties and they're just, their mouths are falling open. and I'm going, you need to know all this stuff. And by the way, I'm highly trained. I'm a professional person. I've been doing this for 20 years. I know what arrow to pull out of my quiver to fire to get the result I need. And they're going, they started shaking their heads, and by the end of it, they were nodding their heads. And so right now we're just not arguing, but I need to put a little more work into them to convince them that I'm worth the commission.
Yeah.
Or in fact, agents are worth the commission.
Are you having that discussion more and more?
No.
But
generally, if you get to the stage in your career that I am, you should have built up a groundswell of perceived value. So I bring a certain gravitas to the meeting, and I spend less time justifying myself, but establishing the fact that I will be your leader and I will take you through a journey, and that journey will result in this, and this is what it's going to look like. So, if you want to get behind me, I'll be the champion, your advocate, and fight for you for the best price and get the thing sold. However, I'm not the world, I'm not the market, I'm not God. It'll sell where it'll sell, but tell you what, I fight like hell to get you the best I can.
Yeah.
And I spend more time doing that than actually arguing over my fee.
Yeah. Tell me, what's been your toughest time in real estate or in business?
Interesting. With the introduction of GST, I went through a period where sales flatlined for 12 weeks. That's 12 weeks of overheads and wages to pay out and zero income. 3 months.
That's a long time.
Zero. nothing. The patient is dead. Anyway, and then it picked up just before Christmas, and it ended up being a really good year because it was pent-up demand. Now, in that time period, quite a few people probably left the industry.
Yeah.
So for, those masochists that hung in there,
well done.
It ended up being a very good year. Now, that was particularly tough. And once again, in the interest of honesty, right now is tough.
Yeah.
You've got a huge number of very nervous people that are sellers, and you've got a huge number of very nervous buyers.
Yeah.
Everybody's frightened to commit either way.
Yeah.
And managing those expectations and the anxieties of those people and managing not to take them home with you, it's pretty tough.
What's your personally, what do you do when, you've gone 3 months without income, or at the moment,
Sure.
Kind of to pick up your britches and carry on?
The biggest thing is I meditate.
Yeah.
Not really well, because I have a feeble mind, but I meditate.
Yeah.
I'd say 5 days a week.
Okay.
I've been doing yoga for the last couple of years and really dig yoga.
Yeah.
My wife is a yoga champion if it were an Olympic sport. I exercise not every morning, but nearly every morning. If I'm a bit fluey or run down or whatever, I won't. But I have this, my wife and I have this fabulous little poodle cross dog. He's called a taboodle, and he is the catalyst for us going for walks, runs every single morning.
Yeah.
And in the evenings too. So at 6:15 this morning, my best friend and his poodle cross arrive at my front door, and we look like two big gay things as we walk off with our poodles. And this morning my wife came with us, and we laugh at ourselves. We solve most of the world's problems. We see the most beautiful time of the day. I live very close to Allen Park, which is in Swanbourne, next to the SAS barracks, and there's a hill there called Melon Hill.
Yes.
And we do a few laps of Melon Hill and walk across Allen Park, and we chat and we run a bit. We play with our dogs, and we solve most of the world's problems then and there in that hour. And I get home and it's around 7, and I have a little tonic which I take in the morning, which is made from turmeric, and then I have some vinegar, and I'm able then I just don't eat anything until dinner time.
Yeah.
And then I eat in the evening. So look, all of that describes an inner journey, not an outer journey.
Yeah.
It's all about looking after your mojo and making sure that you're in a state of self-love, because you can't control what goes on in the external world, only what goes on in the internal world. Getting enough sleep is really important.
Yeah.
I'm finding that the value of sleep is becoming more apparent to me. I eat clean, get exercise, I sleep, and I laugh a lot.
So
that's a rich life, isn't it?
It is a very rich life. Very, very rich life. I feel like we should end there, but I don't want to. So we're going to keep going because I would love to know from you, I guess, final question, your advice to someone who's getting started out in the industry. Okay.
So, and I've helped many people who have literally been starters. Find a person who you resonate with for the right reasons, not whether they drive a Bentley or they've got Prada shoes or all those things, because they're superficial. Generally, they've got those things because they're going to screw you.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're looking for the wrong qualities. The qualities that you look for are people who are entirely engaged in helping others, because that's where value lies.
Yeah.
If the more people you can help, the more wealthy you will become. And so, and it's a long game, not a short game. So it's a marathon, not a sprint. So I would say find somebody who you respect for sincere reasons.
Yeah.
Stick to them. Be teachable. Be willing to drop your ego and learn from the mistakes that they've made over the years they've been in the business. And work like a maniac. And I mean a maniac. Most people have the wrong impression of what it takes to make it in this business. It is really, particularly in the early days, there's that old analogy that an aeroplane uses 80% of its energy to get off the ground, and then the 20% is when it's cruising. It's literally true in real estate. Yeah. I can remember when one of the offices I worked at in the early days, the owner used to complain about how much photocopying we did. And back then we printed our own flyers. So this was like the more flyers, potentially more business, and he would whine about the photocopying costs. Anyway, and he'd only have one photocopier and we'd have to queue up for it during the day. So I soon twigged that I would get to the office at 6 a.m. I'd print this thing till the machine literally overheated. I had a fan. I'd open all the doors on the photocopier, run the fan to cool the photocopier, close it all back up again and start that sucker printing as quickly as possible. And I'd have all my printing folded and everything done by about 8:30 when everybody else was just getting to work.
Yeah.
These days, I'm older than I was and I have paid the price through, not seeing my kids as much as guys who don't work weekends and all of those little things that you give away that seem incidental but really do add up in terms of your energy levels. And really at the end of the day, it's energy you're selling. Yeah. Whether it's, and then there's, we could like go to the energy store and like there's sincere energy and there's authentic energy and then there's loving energy. But at the end of the day, it's a vibe and people read it in you or they don't. And I'd say find somebody who is going to be holistic for you. Like you don't want a person who's a good role model. So find somebody who lives a good life because that's actually the most important thing of all, whether you live a good life or not. Yeah. And become a maniac with a telephone. Just call. Get headphones. Don't have the phone to your ear. Be nice to people. Listen and learn. Yeah. I said that was the last question, but I've got another one. You lied to me. Well, it came from that because now I want to know what you look for. If someone comes to you and says, I'd love you to be my mentor, what are you looking for in that person? I'm looking for a willingness to help others. That is the number one. And also some street smarts. Yeah. Because I don't want you to end up being a doormat. I'm looking for somebody who has real empathy with others, but also as a problem solver for others, because that's how we get our problem solved is when we solve somebody else's. Yeah. And quality of listening and the ability to process what they hear into good dialogue and bloody good sense of humour. Absolutely. Number one. That is it. That was my last question. Thank you so much, Simon. Total pleasure. It's been an absolute pleasure. The book's coming out. I need a signed copy. That's it for this episode. We'd love any feedback or guest suggestions, so hit me up on Instagram on Jess@Crib. And if you enjoyed the show, don't forget to subscribe and be sure to tell a friend.